Hi, this is the Rainbow Connection podcast, where we explore the intersections of queer culture and nerd culture. I'm your host, Alison Hadley. Pronouns are she, her. And today we're going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons. And so the other two intrepid adventurers that are joining me in the tavern today are, if you'd care to introduce yourselves, pronouns, and I'll also ask your let's go your max stat and your dump stat as well.
Hello, I'm Alison Czarnietzki, she, her, and usually err on intelligence, never sort of wisdom, and unfortunately strength and not dexterity.
Noah Greenwood, he, they. I've been told charisma is my high stat, but that was by another autistic queer person, so I think that's situationally dependent. And unfortunately, constitution is my dump stat because I'm chronically ill.
Woot woot. So anyways, I think it's really exciting to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. Like, unlike some of the other episodes where we have source material to draw from, like, we kind of create our own source material. Like, there are pre-made campaigns, but a lot of us, do homebrew and do take in whatever direction we want to. How long have each of you been playing Dungeons & Dragons for?
Oh, some flavor right since grade school, and so that's 30 years.
Okay, nice. No?
Yeah, I'd say probably about 20-some years. I got like a first edition box set from my cousin when I was 11, and it had like a solo campaign because no one would play with me because I was the weird kid, and so I had my own like little solo thing. So since then, I've been a perpetual DM for a long time.
You never really get out of that, hey? Once you're a DM, you're kind of locked in.
You're a forever DM, and you always get the groups being like, oh, you'll DM, and then you're kind of like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I guess I will, okay.
Come play in the world I've created.
Yeah. Myself, I grew up playing other tabletop RPGs. Like, I knew Dungeons & Dragons. I played the video games. I understood the lore and stuff like that, but I only actually started playing D&D itself, like, probably 7-8 years ago, which I think a lot of queer people have sort of been introduced to it in the last 5-10 years, or there's been a huge uptick, let's say, that there's a lot more queer and trans people that have been drawn to this world. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think just the number of kind of autistic, nerdy geeks and the number of trans people in my life, it's not a Venn diagram, it's just a circle. So I think that kind of lines up very nicely.
Yeah, same here. And I think there's just a really, we talk about D&D kind of as like a consequence-free place to play.
Yeah.
So for me, it could be like, a place to try out new pronouns or a place to try on a new character where there's no real-world consequences. So I think a lot of trans people, myself included, found that to be like a safe place to try on a new gender, a new identity, a new something with people in a consequence-free environment before kind of bringing it to the real world.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, what if I played someone of the opposite gender? And then it's like, oh, why am I really into this? And, oh, why can't I wait till our next session? And, oh, hey, what if I brought some of this into our life? Like, I get that, right? So I think we all kind of have stories along those lines.
Well, I wish I was able to do that, like on video games and that sort of side, absolutely. But for the tabletop one, it's like, oh, I can't play a female character. No, what would the table think? And no, regrets.
Oh, fair. So, how about you, Noah? Do you have a tale along those lines?
I mean, I've played many, many characters over the years, and they were traditionally female characters. And then I remember when I started to kind of be like, maybe I'm like non-binary? ? We were playing a Call of Cthulhu campaign, and so my character was a bounty hunter who, of course, was a female character who had to dress as a man so that no one would question her being a bounty hunter in the 1920s. Obviously, it was just for the story.
It's for the bit.
It's for the bit, yeah. And then I was like, wait, do I like this? And then as I came out as Transmask, my next character, and it was an NPC that I was playing that the party ended up adopting, who was a 6'5", 250-pound demon fighter, like just this big buff dude. And I realized like that he was also one of the most like emotionally gentle characters that I played, and I realized, like looking back on it, like, oh, I was kind of creating that idea of what I want masculinity to look like, because a lot of transitioning for me was being like, ooh, men, and being like, I don't want that. So I think I was kind of creating a character that embodied the parts of masculinity that I wanted to kind of like pick and choose for myself, which is why I still keep the they and the genderqueer part of my identity, because I'm like, I'm a dude but not like that. And so Vex, this character, is a dude but not like that.
Yeah. Kind of, men but better.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're all thinking it.
So do either of you remember the first characters you made in D&D? I'm just wondering how sort of the process that you came to for creating your first one differs to how it does now as you've sort of come into yourself more in your life.
I mean, I had the first edition book, and there were only like 3 class options, I think, back in the beginning, where it was like you could be a magic user. It wasn't even sorcerer. It was like magic user or a fighter or a cleric or something. Her name was Kieran, and she was an elf. No, I think she was a half-elf, because there's that whole pull of, like, half-elves don't fit as humans or elves. So there was already a little bit of, like, she doesn't fit in any realm. But, of course, I followed, like, the process, making that character. And now I'm like, what if I had a blind character who had to have every wild shape described to him by his children, and then they all looked really weird, and that would be fun. And I just kind of run with the idea and go from there now. So there's definitely been, like, an evolution of, like, okay, but the rules are, like, more like guidelines.
So what are some of the more creative wild shapes that you've had based on the interpretations?
Well, at one point, Dorian needed to really quickly transform into a flying squirrel mid-fall, and someone described it to him as a squirrel with really long armpits and baby hands. Everyone in the party took psychic damage from whatever that was.
Whatever it was, it did not save you.
I think we still took quite a bit of damage, and everyone was very traumatized.
Yeah. Understandably so. That sounds
amazing.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So, when you're saying about the sort of the outcast with a half elf, right? Like, it's just like, also, I'd say tieflings are pretty popular in the community as well, right? Because it's like, oh, they're outcasts. They didn't do anything wrong. They're really just nice people trying to get by, and they're misunderstood artistic souls, but whatever.
But I mean, like,
else,
if
right?
you ask, like, the regular group, it's like tieflings are evil and orcs are evil. And it's like, no, tieflings are gay and orcs are, like, gay and give great hugs. And we all want to be these characters. And then you can just create that place for you and your friends where you can just be weird together.
Yeah, I think a lot of queer people are making huggable orc characters, because they're just like, so strong, they can just lift me up. It'll just be cute.
We have one in our party. It's interesting on the first character, like, I don't really count any of the childhood ones because nothing really sort of stuck. And then we had this really fascinating kind of campaign. It was actually a bit of a performance art thing. It started with Gary Gygax's like original leaflets, and we ended up basically reinventing AD&D. But that first bit was so rough, right? So like a character would survive 1 to 3 sessions, and then I had one that actually survived and started to get a character and history and lore and all of those sort of things. So, I remember, Blint the Fighter. But it's interesting then, because it was just what would be a neat mechanic to try? And now it's more about the role-playing. What would be a dynamic that speaks to me, that would be interesting, personality I'd like to put on, how would I make any of that happen? So, very different.
Yeah, no, I think, like, when you start as a younger person, like, it's more, I'd say, goal-oriented.
Yep.
Where as an adult, and especially as, like, a queer, in most cases, neurotypical adult, like, the journey can go in a lot of unexpected places, right? So there can be, entire sessions where, you're just, like, fishing. Or you can have one where, like, okay, we've been in this tavern for 4 sessions, and maybe we should leave and do something. Like, I understand this chicken pot pie is amazing, and the bartender's hot, but maybe we should do something else.
We just had a session last night where we spent the entire time shopping in the Feywild.
Yeah.
And we didn't even go to multiple stalls. We were at Odds Ends, the trinket shop.
Amazing.
And our owl bear, who thinks he's a rogue, really wanted a glass jar of eyeballs. And most of the session was spent searching for a glass jar of eyeballs and looking through these trinkets. So, it can just go in really weird directions. And I think, too, with, like, the characterization, I find that I start playing a character and I don't necessarily give them a full backstory anymore, because I kind of discover who they are as we play. And I'm like, oh, oh, okay, this character doesn't actually like this or whatever as we're playing the game.
I like that. And I think if you have kind of the vibe sussed out more, that you don't need to have the backstory right away and they're like, okay, this actually makes sense if this happens.
Yeah.
And it gives you a little more freedom, I find. And something I also think is interesting is a lot of people will say, your characters are, a part of your personality that maybe you haven't explored, or maybe something you want to pretend is more prominent. Or it's so weird, though. In I think my most recent character, I sort of built the character first, and then I modeled my personality a little bit after the character in certain things, like when I started doing drag, and I was like, okay, I need a name for my drag persona, and my party's like, well, why don't you just use your D&D name? It's an amazing name for drag. And I did, and then I'm like, then the choices that I made in the D&D campaign are like, wait, actually, I could do that on stage. I could do a variation of that, because Stabitha More Wounds is the name in the campaign, is a chaotic neutral bard. And I'm like, tell me that doesn't translate very well to drag.
That's perfect.
And like, I just got it initially because I love making improvised songs. And I'm like, this way I'll have a captive audience. People can listen to my silly little songs, and they have no choice but to be delighted by me. So it's interesting that I think that's a less common route, but maybe not too uncommon.
I that one resonates with me because, like, I think the current character that I have, Lumi, she's a chaotic good gnome. She's like not even 4 foot tall. Think like a human sort of 10-year-old sort of scale, and unhinged in just the most delightfully charming sort of way. And it's interesting because it's like something really deeply resonates, and it's just, I don't know, there's so much responsibility, especially now world is so heavy, all of these things. And it's kind of like, I would just want to be like, ooh, squirrel, jump, etc., poke at the things and all of these sort of pieces. And it's like there's this element of delight that it's kind of like, oh, I've been underserving this in myself, that is kind of reflected in this character. And it's fascinating to kind of look back and reflect on that.
It is. Like, if you can like inhabit a character that has like a bit of a childlike sense of wonder. Like, I know, speaking for myself, and I assume I'm not the only one who grew up like really like depressed and dysphoric, is that I didn't have a lot of joy in my childhood, and I didn't do a lot of things that a lot of people did, and they had these wonderful memories of that. And it's nice to sort of experience that through the eyes of something that you created, even. Like, you're like, I created this person, and now I get to delight in new treasures that they experience for the first time. And I think there's something really special about that. And I think that's a big part of the draw for queer and trans people that spent a big chunk of their lives not like exploring for themselves in a body or in a way that is authentic to them.
Yeah, I like that. Like, on my side, a lot of that was just channeled into work. I had no identity outside of work. And so I got really good at the work, at the leadership side. I'm a CEO. I can business, I can adult, I can navigate, I can think strategically and all those sort of things. And I want to be as far away from the one you give the leadership. You do not want Lumi negotiating anything at all. And it's interesting how it's kind of like, oh yeah, no, there's definitely a little bit of response built into some of that. And it's been very fascinating to explore.
Yeah, one of the coolest things I find is it's less success driven than a lot of things as well. Like, there's times where, failing your saving role can actually lead you to a more interesting place or lead you to more character development. Like, it's not just all about, oh yeah, rolling that 20s all day long, like crushing it. Like, you have to think on your feet and you have to adapt. And I think that's where some cool opportunities for growth emerge for your character. And
the dice really tell a story too. So I tend to try and follow that. So like, when there are failures, so like with Vex, this big fighter character that I made, who's like, his role was fighting and a soldier, like his background was a soldier. Anytime we were in combat, he rolled a 2 on his attack rolls. Not a 1. It wasn't like a total failure, but it was pretty bad, to the point where it's like a running joke of like,
still not great.
It's like, it's not great. He's not going to hit anything. But he would roll 20s on animal handling checks and on performance checks. And I was like, this man doesn't want to fight. And it actually really like built into his story, where it was like, he doesn't want, and this ended up being like, oh, is this actually about me? He doesn't want this role that was given to him by his parents. He doesn't want the role that was assigned to him by society. Oof. He wants to do something that's completely unexpected for someone who looks like him and who takes up space like him. And then he gets to. And so even just kind of realizing that as we were playing and being like, oh, okay, this character wants to do something unexpected. I want to do something unexpected. And you get to kind of process that in game, especially when you have a good group of people that you feel safe with.
A mechanic I'd really like is we used to play a lot of GURPS, and very sort of modular.
Sorry, just for a sec to explain, because everyone listening, I know about GURPS, but people listening or watching might not know. So if you could briefly
So GURPS is another
GURPS.
tabletop role-playing system, and it is incredibly complicated. I consider it sort of the Linux to the Windows of like D&D or something like that. And we had a DM who really understood the system, and it was great. So I just showed up, and he was like, okay, roll so many dice. But the one kind of mechanic I really liked in that is it had advantages and disadvantages. So when you're building the characters, you had, say, 100 points, and it's like, oh, I want to be good at locksmithing. That's 15 points. But you could also have a disadvantage that would be negative 15, and you could balance it out. And I can't remember any of the positives for the characters, meaningless. But it's the disadvantages, like we had a Stone Age game, and it's kind of like, oh no, he's going to be extremely terrified of any statues. He'll think like his god is looking at him through, and has to like destroy the statues if he can. And now the party's buying little statuettes and leaving them around, and it's just like, that's so much personality in those things. So I definitely, whether it's through a dice roll or whether it's through kind of like leaning into that sort of idea of a flaw or something like that, so much more personality than just like the min-max. It's like, oh, I want to be good fighter and win dice roll. So
Yeah, we would go, we had one session or one campaign that ran for almost 2 years, and we played almost every week. And I think we would go months without doing combat. Like we rarely leveled based on like XP with combat. We did a lot of role playing, and a lot of us were like, I was realizing I was DMing it, and I'm realizing people were processing things through their character. And we had one point where like there were all people who didn't really know each other very well. I was just like, ooh, you're all my friends, and I think you like each other, so let's get together. But they weren't quite clicking yet. And so I was like, let's do trauma rooms. So basically it was like, what's your character's worst trauma? You all have to go through a door and you face it together, which was really fun. And it was like really emotional in the game and in real life. One of the people, her worst trauma and her character's worst trauma were basically the same thing, which was like getting bullied and having other kids being mean. And the other players stepped right in and were like, don't say that to my friend. This is my best friend. And the player started crying because it was like, wait, no, these people are my real friends in real life. So like it has had such a profound impact in real ways on the people and on me, in our lives.
That's really special. Yeah, like that's a cool thing. Like I actually recently found that there are therapists out there that actually follow like role-playing models, and there's like, we're going to create a character. Your character is going to go on a journey, and like it's a very effective way to do it, to kind of, maybe you can tap into a truth of yourself without acknowledging that it's actually a truth, right? Like, oh, this is something that my character really struggles with, like she's had trouble with this for years, and the poor thing, she just wants to figure this out. But I'm cool, I'm normal, I'm without flaw.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Like, come on, you've met me.
No, my son has actually done that, where they did, it was for kids, and it was like a D&D and a workout thing too, but they explored like therapy stuff through the characters, and I could tell he didn't even realize that he was learning things about himself as he was telling me about the friends he'd made and like learning social skills. My son's autistic and has ADHD, and so struggles with making friends, but making friends in D&D was easier, and so being able to take like what he learned about making friends in this fantasy world and apply it to the real world was really cool to watch.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
It's just a little aside, playing any sort of tabletop stuff. So my kid was 7 at the time, and we had a very rules light. It was wooden blocks and Lego characters and whatever, and you just roll a dice. It was just like, that seems hard, roll it over 12 or something like that. And we had our friends, and one is a very rules heavy and was just completely like alienated by this, but the other was really into storytelling, and it was good. And I was just like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to take this one off the rails. Instead of like, oh no, we catch the bad guys again, it's like, there's a fish in this truck. Who stole my fish? And it's like, well, I didn't. Well, but that's my truck. Well, if it's your truck, why is my fish in it? Well, it's an aquarium truck. Well, who would have an aquarium truck if not a fish dealer? And so I kept leaning into this sort of thing. And like my ex is just giving me like the evil eye from across the table, but it's like, there's no tears. We're good. Let's see how far this can get. And meanwhile, the bad guys steal all the cars and this fish thing and whatever. And we managed to catch one of the bad guys and interrogate him, right? And I don't know anything about the fish, and my kid, proudest parenting moment, and he was 7, he just goes, "Mwahaha, turns out I was leader of the bad guys all along." And it was just like, oh, it's amazing.
I love that.
That's so good, because especially, little surprises like that, because you're like, okay, this kid's obviously just going along with this, you don't realize that they're just going to go off book like that and be like, yeah, no, that was me. Like, I've been playing you this entire time. You've been playing this game, and I've been playing you.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's incredible. So one thing I did want to talk about is, so Noah, I know you have an interesting story about how your life and your character's life had some interesting parallels.
Yeah, my husband and I, well, we didn't meet through D&D. We were friends before that, but we kind of got married in D&D twice before we started dating in real life.
So, sorry, different campaigns or like in
two
the same
different campaigns.
Okay.
Yeah, two different campaigns.
So there's a bit of a trend.
We were friends for quite a while, and both of the characters were an NPC that was a villain that he then seduced and fell in love with. And we actually had, our friends were probably so sick of us because in the second set of it was my big buff dude character, and I actually proposed to Sky's character in game during our session, but we were still just friends, like no homo. And it took another probably 6 months after that for us to finally realize like we were in love with each other, and we have been together now for 3 years, and that's kind of why we ended up doing our engagement photos dressed as pirates, because our characters were pirates that fell in love the first set. But it was interesting to watch and to be able to kind of like grow that again. There's that kind of like risk-free experimentation in D&D where it's like, well, it's not me flirting with Sky, it's Bex flirting with Julian. That's different.
So different.
Completely different. There's no connection. There was a connection.
But yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if actually, no, I know you watch like Ultimatum Queer Love, right? Yes. Like you have that trial marriage, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, let's see if this works in game.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see if we can take this out into the world, right? I'm sure that's exactly what was going through
totally.
your brain,
Yeah.
even though I don't know if the show is out yet. But...
Probably not, but
No.
it was definitely like...
Well, that incredible foresight
Yeah,
thing.
I caused it to be just for my brain. No, but there was... I mean, I knew I had feelings, but it was one of those, I'm like, well, he probably doesn't like me back. And then after that, our friends who were playing with us who were like, listen, man, we've been playing D&D with you every week for a year and a half. And you have flirted in-game every week for a year and a half. Would you please kiss already? So we did.
Yeah.
And those people actually, Sky actually moved up here from the U.S., and we had to get our friends to write letters of recommendation for his immigration. And they all were like, they got married in D&D before they were even dating. This is definitely real. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
Did you ever have a moment where, like, you're with him afterwards, and you're like, is he just being nice to me in game and this is carried over?
Probably, yeah.
Like
There's just that, like, uncertainty and, like,
Yeah.
self-consciousness. Yeah, I think, too, we were both kind of, like, doing therapy with our characters through our characters. And I'm actually now working on, like, a novel based on all of those kind of characters' adventures and going back and talking with him about it and being like, oh, is this what you were working through during this, like... We always call them episodes. I know it's a session, but we're always like, it's this episode of D&D. Like he's like, yeah, that's the thing I was working through on this, So it's cool to be able to go back and look at like the therapy we were doing, even unknowingly, with those characters. And it's actually funny because my therapist will often say that like wounds that would happen in relationships, need to happen not necessarily in relationships, but in relation, and will actually ask me like, if this scenario happened to your character, what would they do? And it's actually really helpful to be like, oh. I could go write that, and then that helps me. So it's it's been a journey.
It's an incredible journey. I love that for you. It just makes my heart so full to hear that. So another thing that's interesting that Noah touched on a bit here is that you can also sort of explore like different body types and what it's like to inhabit those bodies and what it's like navigating a world in that and interacting with others. So Alison, do you have any thoughts on that, or times that you've done that and you found it to be useful or interesting or fun?
Yeah, so like traditionally I'd always have kind of the generic masculine character, and it never felt quite right, and it's just about the numbers of this sort of piece, right? And then it was actually in Baldur's Gate 3, and I spent all this time in the character creator, like way too long in the character creator. I'm talking like 8 hours in the character creator.
We've all been there.
And well, and I ended up with this, like, oh, she was amazing, and I couldn't actually play more than 15 minutes of the game because I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. And about 2 weeks later, egg cracked, and it's kind of like, I'm trans. And what's interesting is you have this visual artifact of kind of like, that's who I want to be. And it's interesting how physically different, because it's like my skeletal structure would be impossible for that. This is like, she's small and dainty and cute and all that sort of piece. It's leaning into the sort of muscle mama sort of thing. So it's kind of like, I got strength. I can do all these things. This has been great, right? But it's just like, that ideal body would be. And so now that this is like there, and I don't have to worry about what people might think around the table, and obviously they wouldn't think anything around the table, and I regret not experimenting with some of these things. But it's what happens if I do have that character who's girly and cute and fun and the flowers in the hair and that sort of thing? And it's been just a really neat way to explore and think and visualize and kind of like understand yourself as someone else.
Yeah, it's a little different, but for the same reason I love playing an Aarakocra character, because I'm like, what if I was like a bird person and I could say craw a lot and make all these cool cloaca jokes? And so I got to experience a bit what that was like, and it was pretty cool. So how about you, Noah? Do you have any similar experiences?
I mean, I think the opposite way, Vex was that character for me, where I was like, because I'm 5'3", like I'm never gonna be a big dude. And I always forget how short I am until I'm around cis men, and then I'm like, all right. But like Vex is that character. It was like, yeah, like 6'5", like this big beefy dude. And then I can't physically get to that, but then I was like, oh, but I can work out. Like I can go to the gym and I can get strong, and that was cool. And then another thing that's kind of like mixed in with D&D is like in the last couple of years, I've been dealing with a lot of chronic illness and mobility issues and disability, and I already have several characters who are disabled in different ways. But it's funny. My husband always tells me that I predicted it, because what part of Vex's storyline was that he injured himself really badly and then has this like chronic injury due to it, and then has to allow his friends to help him, and has to allow his friends to like convince him that it is a big deal and you do need help and you can accept help and you can take up space. And then just sitting there as the character, listening to my friends tell the character, take up space, we're here for you, we're going to help you, you don't have to carry this alone, was just like so impactful. And then being able to explore, like I've been using a wheelchair a lot in the past few months, and I have a character who also uses a wheelchair, and their thing is that wherever they go, they have stone shape as a spell, and they'll just stone shape all the stairs into ramps. And the wish that I could just do that in real life is so great. Like they just go around, they stone shape the ramps, and then they send an invoice to the company being like, this is what you owe me for making your building accessible.
I've made your tavern accessible.
Literally.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, and now you owe me 500 gold. It's not a racket, I promise. And I just like wish I could do that in real life, but it's fun to be able to, because a lot of the time, even when I was building like my character who was blind and I'm looking online for resources, people are like, well, why would you do that? You can cure blindness. Why would you do that? You can cure. And I'm like, okay, well, in real life, I don't even know what's wrong with me, so I can't cure it. And even if I did, like I worked as an interpreter for many years, and I still do sometimes. And like a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to cure being deaf. I don't want to cure being this. This is part of who I am, and I should still be able to go on adventures. And so I'm like, well, why not? So, I have my character who is blind, and like, yes, on his own, maybe he's not the most effective adventurer, but the point isn't to be on his own. The point of D&D isn't to go off on your own adventure. It's to find your friends and to complement each other and to make a party where together you support each other. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Exactly. And your blind character, I'm sure, ends up helping just as much as they get help, right?
Yeah,
like
we play Marco Polo on the battlefield for healing. So, it's
my
like
God,
Marco, and then anybody who yells Polo gets healed, because we can just do like echolocation. But you have to have friends and you have to have support that shows up in the game in real life too.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so that really actually resonates in kind of an interesting way, and exploring some of that. And slightly different scale, but like a few years ago had a issue, and like I couldn't lift my hands, and it's like, oh well, this is interesting, and even now it's all kind of screwed up, and so it's just like, I want to process that. I think there's a little bit of that implicit therapy sort of thing, right? So here's this character, the backstory is kind of the part of the magic, and kind of like her hand's all screwed up, and she's got this little tinkerer sort of brace thing that she's made, but it's inefficient, and that's why she's kind of like overdeveloped this kind of invisible mage hand thing. And it's just kind of like, it's fun to think about and explore and all these sort of pieces, and it's like, Yeah, that's part of the identity of the character. That's part of the identity of the player, and you wouldn't want to just be. It's kind of like, no, everyone is perfect bodies, Adonises or whatever, right? Like it's like, no, there's something interesting in exploring that sort of piece.
Yeah, and we've kind of done that where like we've created. Like I said, I'm a perpetual DM, and I run a lot of them in the world that we've kind of built, where we have the Enclave, this adventuring guild, and it's like their whole thing is that they're accessible. They're an accessible adventuring
I
guild
love it.
in ways that they can be. So like everybody takes sign language classes because a lot of the people use sign language, and there is like everything is wheelchair accessible, and you know all the signs are in multiple languages, and they have like accessible like rooms and washrooms and stuff, and like obviously it's impossible to make everything 100% accessible because disabilities overlap, but we always try. So when I have players making new characters, I'm always like, if you want your character, if you need an accessibility, you know, option for your character, let me know and we'll build it into this, because that's important to me, to be able to be like, all right, let's jump into this world where homophobia doesn't exist, transphobia doesn't exist, you know, ableism is still probably there because I think that's like deeply ingrained in a lot of things, and sometimes it's accidental, but if it's there, we fix it or work to try and make it better.
Or at least address it and realize it's there and
Yeah.
find out a workaround. Right?
Exactly. So it's really fun to be like, no, I built this world, and in this world, no one calls me slurs. And in this world, if I'm like, actually, I'm a guy, people are like, cool, that's fine. And it's like, it's just a nice reprieve to be, to do that. And so, you know, when people were getting upset about like the rewrites where they were making source material less racist and stuff, it's like, you know what, if you want to still play in your crappy racist bro world, go for it, but the rest of us don't have to. And so I think that's part of the reason why I do continue to DM too, because I'm like, no, I'm going to make this world, and I'm going to make this world fun for everyone, not just for people who look a certain way or act a certain way or can do certain things. And then if I know like, oh, your character is disabled in this way, well, then I'm going to make something that they can do, or like adapt it in a way so that it's fun for everyone. And I like being able to just say, those expectations suck, let's do something else.
And that's an important thing that I'm glad that we're able to do easily, and just to integrate in there, because honestly a lot of the source material has not aged well. And and my friend who is like my immediate friend group's like forever DM, like if they are ever doing a campaign that is like a pre-made, that's one from one of the books, like they'll go through and they're like, okay, nope, to get rid of these stereotypes, and these aren't like, this isn't a vague, you know, dig at a certain racial group anymore. It's something else. Like it's like these people are nice and they're doing the best, or they're bad, but it's not because they're racially stereotyped, right? Like
yeah, and you can go through as the DM and you can check those things. And like we also do, like we have a consent and gaming sheet, especially with new groups that we hand out at the beginning. And I like for things like, I don't like spiders. Spiders scare me. So I'm like, I'm fine with spiders in the game, but like maybe not this. But it'll be things like even things like certain types of gore, or like eye trauma, or we had one person who like lost their home to a wildfire, and they were like, if we could not do like a fire-based campaign, that'd be great. So I like sending those out ahead of time and getting them back, and then making sure that I can either, and we usually kind of do like green, yellow, red, but I've also, you know, we do those and we try to avoid those things, but I've also had to stop a session partway through because I was like, I'm getting upset because this is triggering something that I didn't know that I was upset about. But being able to have the table agree and just be like, I need to take a break to go process whatever this is, and being respectful of those boundaries, because I played in groups before where it's very like, too bad, that's what the story's about. Like, well, why?
Well, that's the thing, that's just a carryover for consent in general, right? Like it's, you can, and I've done those at the beginning as well, where you're like, this is what I'm okay with. Like I don't want any violence against animals or children or whatever. Like that's, those are things that I definitely don't want in the campaign. But then something comes up, and you're like, I thought I was okay with that, and maybe I'm not. But especially if you're playing with the right people, then it's the consent rules apply. Like, it has to be ongoing, enthusiastic consent. If you're like, I don't like the turn this took, and not just because my character took a bunch of damage. Like it's like, this is this is
genuinely upsetting.
This is something beyond a couple bad rolls. This is something that, you know, I'm gonna have to go home and I'm gonna have to unpack, and that's not why I come here. Right? Like it's so I think it's a good way to learn a lot of life things, like when you're talking about, you know, when children figuring things out and how to interact with people. But also for adults, it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to consent to something just because I said it was okay when we started the campaign a year and a half ago.
Well, we grow as people so fast.
Yeah,
so.
you grow as a person as the campaign evolves. Like, not saying that they're always tied to each other, but like, you know, things happen in your real life that maybe might be a little fresh, and you might not feel like going into the campaign. Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's a good way. It's a good exercise in being a better person, even if you're playing an evil character, right? Like it's, you can still it's an interesting that you can, you're inhabiting this character, but you're not entirely gone. Like, you're committing to the bit as best you can, but, your feelings while you're going through this still matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably a big reason why it appeals to a lot of people in the queer and trans communities, is because there's still that respect, and as we've touched on, a lot of, like, community building aspects and, like, capacity building and ways to support others, and people who might not have had positive social interactions or felt like they've had a support network. Now they do. Now, you can have an adventure, and all of our adventures have needed help at some point. And people have tried to do it. We've tried to do the same for others. It doesn't always work out, but we try.
And sometimes when it doesn't work, it's funny.
Exactly. and like, that's the thing is yeah, you can have hilarious results. Like, okay, you just tried to help, you rolled a 1. Sorry, things are going to suck for you for a while.
That's the thing too, as a DM, like, it's your responsibility to make failure. You have a choice. You can be like, you missed, or you can say, and. You missed, and make it fun, make it cool. And I try to make sure that, like, when we're doing combat, if this player is continuously missing, and they're not hitting the target, they still get to be part of the story. It's like, oh, you missed, but you slide this way, and, like, this rock falls down or something, just so that it doesn't feel like they're just sitting there kind of like bonk, 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 and nothing's happening. And that makes being a DM really hard, because you're kind of trying to moderate everything that's happening and make sure that everyone is having fun, even if their character isn't having fun, which can be tough.
Yeah, because you get that kind of bit of a dopamine hit of, like, a successful hit.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if it's just like, oh, wrong, you suck. It's like
You start to feel bad about yourself.
There should be something, like, there's something, you see something changing, you see something evolving, like, you dislodge a rock, and what's going to happen now, but you just now know that you have to be aware of that, like, something else is happening. There's some sort of consequences to your action, just like, no, like, you suck, nothing happened, try better next time.
The level of improv needed on a DM is just incredible. Ton of respect. I tried to run a little mini Call of Cthulhu campaign with my ex and her sister, and they really wanted to be into it, but they would not survive 10 minutes in a Call of Cthulhu style world, right? And it's kind of like, oh, here's this creepy cabin in the woods with the door kind of, oh, you're just going to walk right up. A person walks up to you and greet you, clearly wearing the skin of the former cabin. Oh, you're fine. And you want to drink the tea he's giving you. It's kind of like, okay, you're really making this hard.
At some point, natural consequences just take over.
You're like, oh, these ancient ones sound neat.
It's just, yep.
But sometimes, honestly, those failures lead to really funny stories. Like, there was a point where the whole party was in, they called it Super Mega Hell, but they were trying to escape. And there was like I don't know what you call it, I forget, like a mirror pond thing where you could, like, phone each other. And of course, one of the characters was like, I touch it, and answered the phone. And then it was another character's, like, long lost brother. And then there was this whole thing. And then they ended up just saying wrong number and hanging up this thing. And it was like the dumbest thing ever, but it ended up being a really funny story that came from a stupid roll where they, like, failed. But now it's still like, hey, remember, wrong number. And it's still funny. So it can still turn into, like, a really good story, even if it's a failure that's, like, real bad.
I like those failures. Like, I think back, we had this one Star Wars campaign, and I honestly can't remember anything about it other than the characters I was trying to play was he was happy and nice and ethical and somehow in the Empire, and that was kind of an interesting idea to sort of explore. But just because of the roles, and ended up just shooting people in the crotch. and after the 5th time, it's just like, wow, you are a monster. And it's just like, okay, you know what? Let's lean into that. He's great until you cross him, and then he's gonna shoot you in the crotch. And it's just like one of those, like, that's the part I remember of that story.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It's like, what were we trying to do somewhere? So it's like, no. It's those little fun details, or like, those are the stories. And because this is, at the end of the day, it's a storytelling medium, and you want those stories that stay with you, that help you process things, but also our memories and joy and camaraderie and all of those pieces.
Yeah, and that's why it's so, like, important as a DM to remember that I wouldn't necessarily say you're also a player. You kind of are, but you're telling the story together. It's not your story and these people are little actors in your story. You're co-creating a world. You're co-creating a whole story with them. And when it feels like a story that you're creating together, it's more fun.
You need that level of exasperation, right?
Yes.
Like, it has to go two ways.
And then you can pivot. That's the thing, too. Like, I used to start DMing, and I would have, like, my whole binder, and I had the whole thing planned out. Now I'm like, we're playing this afternoon. I've got a vibe. There's a guy named Jimothy that you're probably going to talk to. Fred might show up at some point. I never give that's the other things, I never give the NPCs really fancy names. I used to give them like if they were tieflings, they had like tiefling names, and now it's like, no, this is Bob, because you are not going to remember, and you're just going to call him something stupid.
Meet Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is Jonathan. It's like, you'll remember that. But like being able to pivot, and I think a lot of new DMs struggle with that, where they're like, okay, but like Jimothy had the information, and I was like, well, they're not talking to Jimothy, so now Jonathan has the information. You just gotta like pass the, it's like hot potato, and be able to like pivot and kind of run with that. It's really hard.
It's finding that balance, because trying to provide structure for it, but again, it's not, the players aren't your little playthings, right? Like, and I've had DMs that are like that, like, no, they're dead set on it. These are the rules, and okay, everyone's gonna die 3 times in the first few months, and they're just gonna deal with it. And it's like, okay, neat, this is great. I got really invested in character, and like, you could have had something fun happen, but
and you lose a sense of agency then too. Like I played for a while where I another player, and I counted how many times the DM told us no, and I feel like it's improv, yes, and right, like even if you don't want them to do the thing, my go-to is, are you sure you want to do that? And if I say it in a certain tone of voice, they'll usually be like,
We had a GM do that, and do you turn the doorknob to the left or to the right? And in a very serious way, 45-minute discussion later, there's nothing wrong with the doorknob. It was just a...
We had that yesterday where it was like, so do you open it? And the player was like holding their hands out and was like, do I open it? And it's
but then also it's fun to just mess with them and do something like that. It's like a completely normal door, and they're like...
We had the perfectly normal egg. Every time we go to the market in the Feywild, there's all these random trinkets, and then there's an egg, and it has a label on it that says, this is a perfectly normal egg, don't worry about it. And it is just a regular egg. It's just an egg. And our bard spent... A perfectly normal egg. Our bard spent 45 minutes last time arguing with the shopkeeper and doing, like, what percentage of an egg is it? Like, what do you think? They got into this, like, metaphysical discussion of, like, well, if I think it's 75% of it. He ended up picking it up and dropping it on the floor. It was an egg. And then he just had to clean up the egg and leave the shop.
So Schrodinger's egg was, in fact, just an egg.
Was, in fact, an egg this time. But messing with the players is fun. And then, having, like, you know, you can guide them by having consequences with a capital C for going, you know, off the map. Kind of when you're in a video game and it's like, oh, you don't go this way, and you start getting an exhaustion debuff. You know, you can kind of do that. But guiding versus pushing is very different, and it's a thin line to walk.
From its origins, it's been kind of... Dungeons and Dragons have been sort of looked upon as the domain of, like, teenage boys, or, like, you know, say older middle-aged men who live in their basements and, like, don't see the sunlight very often, and there's a certain stereotype that goes with it. That's the D&D guys, right? But especially in the last while, there's been a real shift to be not only like a community thing, but also like a family thing. And I know you are both parents and have led campaigns or one-shots for your children. I just wonder if you had any fun stories you'd like to share about that, and how it's been, and the interactions, and how it's, you know, maybe enhanced your relationship, or you felt a little closer to each other.
Oh, so I got one more fun little kid story, and again, he really liked cars, and we had the Lego and the blocks to give some sort of visual sort of anchor, and I had the one rules-heavy player who just, like, there are no rules and was panicking. His storyteller wife, it's kind of like, I'm going to be a vegetable mage, I'm going to ride a carrot, and that was fun. She was just enjoying the storytelling, and then, like, everyone else is trying to figure out some little plot, but then here's this kid. He was 8 at the time, and he spent the entire hour session, and he was engaged. Like, we were planning to, like, see how long his attention span goes and bail, but no. The entire hour, getting the car, backing it out of the garage, changing the tires, stacking the winter tires over there, and like he basically just switched the winter tires one roll at a time, and it's like we could just fast forward this. It's like, no, I want to do this tire and then the lug nuts, and it was really funny. And our story,
the lug nuts in the proper order.
And it was so cute because we had just done the winter tires on the real car, but like this kid likes cars, and my friend there, she was kind of going, yeah, like from our perspective, we're exploring the fantastical, like that's how I have my carrot mage, but from this kid's side, it's like that's a fantasy to be able to drive a car, to have a car with tires, and to explore what that feels like in these things. Like, it was just as fantastical to him to rotate the tires in a car as us to go gallivanting into the wild. So
that's so cute. Yeah, we've started playing with. I've got two kids. One's almost 18, and the other's 11. And it's hard sometimes because the age gap between the two of them to find an activity that we can all do together. But D&D was one that we managed to do together, and we always had a lot of fun doing that. And even before that, my youngest would always sit and listen to when we played D&D, and then he would ask for bedtime stories about our D&D characters, which is kind of where I started writing down these stories into books, because he was like, well, what happened? What did Julian do? And Julian has wild magic. And so, of course, wild magic surges are so fun for little kids. So he's like, did he get another rain of frogs? Like, was there an umbrella? Did gravity flip? And he just wanted to hear. And so now he will go tell other people the stories, which is really cute. So then eventually I said, do you want to be part of the story? You can make your own story. So he decided to make a gnome barbarian who's very angry and very small and has a great axe that is as big as he is. And so we play every once in a while, him and me and my husband. But I do put him in this world where we've created this guild that's like accessible, so that he just sees this example. I said to him at one point, like, this guild has a sensory room because he's autistic and he goes to the sensory room at school. And he was like, oh, that's so cool. And there's a place I can go and jump around on the pillows and get all my energy out. But it's also like, when you get a quest in this, it's not go kill the gnolls. It's, why are the gnolls a problem? Are the gnolls truly a problem? Or is it the humans that are like, the gnolls are on my land, but they actually stole the land from the gnolls? And so we're able to kind of like direct that narrative and like change how he sees things by playing it out together. And then he always has so much fun because for some reason this specific character rolls a nat 20 on dex checks every time. A barbarian. Every time. A nat 20. It's ridiculous. So he has so much fun with it. And he'll even join in on our grown-up sessions. He makes those little like fortune teller things at school. And he's decided he wants to just be the random fortune teller who shows up in the Feywild market. And so he'll come around to everybody and be like, I'll tell your fortune. And so he like joins me as my little like co-DM sometimes, which is really cute. But I like that it's kind of fostering that love of storytelling and that creativity. And he'll come up with some really cool like homebrew weapons. Like he's come up with homebrew ideas that he's given to me and said like, you should use this in your campaign. And it's neat to be able to share that with him and to kind of pass that down. I think he'll be, once he's a little bit older, I think he'll be a really great DM and he'll have a lot of really cool stories that he can share with his friends. And
Can you imagine playing a character with him DMing?
not yet. Not yet, because I think he's still figuring out the whole flexibility and improv bit where he'll get stuck in, but this is what you have to do. And I'm like, well, what if I don't want to do that? So we can kind of use that as like a again, like a strategy with him to work on flexibility and be like, oh, you want to do that? That actually is impossible here.
Maybe starting off as like a co-DMing,
Yeah.
right? Like I think that might be a good way to ease him into it.
Yeah, no, I think he's got potential for sure. He's also, the attention span as an 11-year-old. Although again, I'm impressed. I thought the same thing when we played with him the first time. I figured 20 minutes and he'd be gone, and he sat for 3 hours and played with us and was engaged the whole time. And I was like it's just been a really powerful method of connection and storytelling and healing and like transformation, both literal and figurative.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful, and I think that's a good place to wrap it. Just talking about family, because when you break it down, like D&D is about family, like in some cases blood family, in other cases like found or forged family as well. So I think that's a very important unifying theme, and something that kind of draws us all in, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you again for being here. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. And I want to give you a chance if you have any final thoughts, if you have any ongoing projects that you want to plug or anything, feel free. So let's start with Alison. Do you have anything?
Oh, this has just been fun. D&D is amazing, and I just love being able to explore things with queer friends, etc. It's lovely. To plug something shamelessly, we did just launch a video game, Control Alt Deal, on Steam. It's fun. It's crazy. Has nothing to do with D&D, but yeah, check it out.
How about you, Noah?
No, it's just been a lot of fun. I love D&D. I was so happy to have another opportunity to wear my pirate outfit.
And it's such a sick outfit,
It
so
is a
I'm
great
glad you
outfit.
did. Yeah.
I'm very happy about it. So, no, it's been great. I don't have any. Well, I'm writing novels, but none of them are available yet. But one day.
Okay, one day. Okay, well, thanks again to everyone. Again, I'm your host, Alison Hadley. Thanks for joining us on the Rainbow Connection podcast, and looking forward to seeing you next time.